A tax is a tax, unless, of course, it's a penalty, whatever, I don't know. That's the conclusion surrounding Mitt Romney's stance on the health care mandate after a top advisor said one thing while Mitt Romney said another. And our senior congressional correspondent, Dana Bash, tried to clear it all up during Romney's 4th of July stop in New Hampshire.
At first, the ever-disciplined Mitt Romney refused to answer.
Just look at the interview. Wait until you see the whole answer, all right?
Earlier, Romney taped an interview with CBS to give a carefully crafted response to a thorny question for him, whether the health insurance mandate is a tax.
Thank you. I've told you. Just read it. Take a look at it.
But finally, he gave CNN the news.
The Supreme Court is the final word, right? Isn't it the highest court in the land? They said it was a tax, didn't they? So it's a tax, of course. That's what they say it is.
The main reason the already cautious Romney was especially careful here is because the GOP message on the mandate is already muddled. Earlier this week, a top Romney advisor said the candidate did not think the insurance mandate is a tax, but rather a penalty, what Democrats call it.
The governor believes that what we put in place in Massachusetts was a penalty, and he disagrees with the court's ruling that the mandate was a tax.
That infuriated Republicans in Washington, preparing to pound the president for imposing what they call the biggest tax in American history. Democrats here shadowing Romney's event didn't miss a beat.
I think that people see the president as being a strong leader, standing up for his principles and moving forward, and we'll let Mitt Romney argue with himself.
Romney's news came during a brief bit of Independence Day action in an otherwise quiet week with his family at their New Hampshire vacation home.
Here comes Mitt Romney down the parade route. This is exactly the kind of scene that you see from politicians all over the country on July 4th, but there is nothing more important than a Republican presidential candidate on July 4th before Election Day, and it's very clear watching Mitt Romney work this crowd.
How are you doing? Happy 4th of July, guys. How are you?
But the large Romney family, 30 counting grandchildren, hardly had the parade route to themselves.
Happy birthday, USA!
Team Obama was there in full force, since New Hampshire's 4 electoral votes are critical for the president's prospects for re-election.
Fighting for the middle class!
Dana Bash, CNN, Wolfboro, New Hampshire.
Okay, and Romney's team's mixed message on health care is reportedly causing irritation among Republicans who have said the Supreme Court ruling meant that President Obama is breaking his pledge to not raise taxes on the middle class. So what does this mean for Romney's campaign and perhaps his staff going forward? Really, it should be, what does it mean for the American people? And I'm sure these guys will agree with me somewhat there. Joining me now is political analyst Mr. Roland Martin and CNN contributor Ms. Dana Loesch. So, Roland, I'm going to start with you. You say this health care mix-up is evidence that the Romney campaign has what you call a schizophrenic strategy?
Oh, absolutely. It's pretty much, hey, let's just throw anything out there and let's see what sticks. And so you can't have a senior advisor saying one thing, very emphatic, and the candidate, he comes back and says something else. The Republicans are sitting here trying to figure out, what do we even say? Reince Priebus was on CNN just the other day, and even he was totally confused about what to say. The campaign is making it very difficult, so they're totally schizophrenic. And so I say it's time for you to get a diagnosis and get some medicine because you need some help.
So, Dana, listen, honestly, if you listen to what the spokesman said on CNN and on other networks, and then you hear what Mitt Romney says, I mean, who needs friends like that?
Well, I mean, it's understandable that they would be a little bit confused about it, especially considering how the White House itself, I think, is confused about it. They said it was a mandate, and then when the Solicitor General argued it before the Supreme Court, it was a tax, and then it became a mandate again. Now, Eric Frenstrom, I don't necessarily agree with his execution. I mean, of course, he is the individual who came up with the Etch-a-Sketch comments, but at the same time, when you really look at what he said, he was suggesting and saying what Mitt Romney said was that he agrees wholeheartedly with the dissent, but that wasn't the majority. The majority was that Obamacare or the health care law was a tax. And so he agrees that the Supreme Court said it's a tax, so it must be a tax, but he supported the dissent. And Eric Frenstrom, when you listen to his remarks, was trying to convey that, but I don't think that he's really the best person to put forward for the campaign to articulate what the campaign
Dana, here's what you just said. You said it's understandable for the Romney campaign to be confused because the Obama campaign is confused about
yes.
it? I mean, how
don't
does that
you
make
think
sense?
so? Don, don't you think so?
No, because the Romney people can assess it their own way without assessing it. Hang on, listen to me. The Romney people should be able to assess what the situation is without assessing it through the lens of the Obama campaign. That's what you just said. It's okay to be confused because the Obama campaign is confused.
Well, no, that's not what I said. I said it's understandable that they would think that way, especially considering that the White House, which, with the health care law, was making the law of the land here. They were saying that this was a mandate, and then arguing it before the Supreme Court, said it was a tax. And the justices themselves, even Sonia Sotomayor, was a little bit confused as to how the Solicitor General, who poorly argued this, by the way, was presenting this case towards the court. Then it became a mandate. Now, consider this, that the White House is still going out there saying that, no, it's not a tax, it's a mandate. Well, if it's a mandate, then that means it's unconstitutional. So I think we ought to be asking the White House, is your law, is this unconstitutional? Is it a tax?
Guess what?
Well, no, hang on, Roland. And look, that whole thing, there is no other side to this argument. It is constitutional because the highest court in the land said that it's constitutional. So we can't go back and say it's not constitutional.
Romney said
you
it
can
was a
argue
tax.
about whether it's a tax or a penalty or whatever. But Roland,
we're not though. We're not.
Roland, if you really listen to the American people and you listen to the polls, we're sitting here on cable television talking about it's a tax, it's a penalty or whatever. Most Americans don't really care whether it's a tax or a penalty. What we should be talking about is whether it's good for the American people going forward instead of he said, she said.
Well, here's my whole deal. I'm not going to waste my time with the whole back and forth. Bottom line is the Supreme Court has ruled. It's as simple as that. And if you're the Mitt Romney camp, this is really how simple it is for them, Don. All he has to do is stick to his original message. I believe that the health care bill that I had as a state was fine for the state, but not for the country. I don't believe in big government. But Mitt Romney is desperately trying. See, this is the problem. The health care law in Massachusetts for them is really their albatross. And so they're trying to figure it all out when really it's a very clear message you can make. They are muddying the waters themselves. But you're right. The average person out there is saying, will I be able to be covered with a pre-existing condition? Will I be able to keep my kids on there? That's where the battle is. And so y'all can knock yourselves out with the mandate, not a mandate, tax, not a tax, penalty, whatever. Bottom line is, do you have health care?
Yeah.
Yep, you sure do.
Well, I think most people would like to elevate the conversation as to what we said. We've got to go for time purposes. Dana, thank you. Thank you, Roland. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey, Dana, I'm going to see you at Essence Music Festival.
I don't know. I saw Friday, though. We got to talk.
Let's come debate the tax and mandate there,
Thank you.
Don.
Let's move on. All right.